Have you ever wondered how two people who seemed destined to last forever could quietly drift apart, not in anger or betrayal, but in the slow erosion of connection? How love that once burned so brightly can fade into silence, leaving behind not bitterness, but quiet acceptance. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban were once Hollywood's shining example of love done right. Two souls who defied the chaos of fame to build something real. Yet behind the photos, the awards and the smiles, there was a story more human than glamorous, one that reminds us that even the strongest hearts can break softly. Their story began in 2005, long before the world imagined them together. At the time, both were standing at emotional crossroads, nursing invisible scars from lives that looked perfect on paper but were marked by deep loneliness. Nicole Kidman, already an Oscar winner and one of the most admired actresses in the world, was still healing from the painful unraveling of her marriage to Tom Cruise. She carried herself with grace, but beneath the poise was a woman longing for something real, something private, away from the noise of celebrity. Keith Urban, on the other hand, was a country star on the rise, charismatic yet burdened by his own demons. His struggles with addiction were a shadow he couldn't quite escape. When they first met at the Day USA Gala, it wasn't a lightning strike or a movie-worthy moment. It was quiet. A spark that didn't shout but hummed with a calm sense of recognition. Nicole would later describe that night as one filled with something unspoken, a feeling that lingered, subtle yet undeniable. Still, she wasn't sure if Keith felt the same. Their lives were built around performances, yet both were searching for sincerity. For a while, their connection remained an unspoken question, until Keith showed up outside her New York home at dawn on her birthday, holding flowers, having driven through the night just to see her. That moment changed everything. It wasn't grand. It was real. And for Nicole, it was the first time in years she felt seen. Their early months together were like the calm after a storm. Nicole's life was carefully structured, balanced between motherhood and her demanding career. Keith brought with him spontaneity and a creative fire that added color to her days. They found in each other what they didn't have alone, a balance between discipline and wildness, order and freedom. For two people who had spent much of their lives performing for the world, this quiet authenticity felt like peace. But even as they built something beautiful, both carried the past like a quiet ache. Nicole's fear of public heartbreak and Keith's fragile recovery from addiction formed the unseen weight that would later test their love. In June 2006, surrounded by a few close friends and family, they married in an intimate ceremony in Sydney. There was no spectacle, no extravagance, just two people making a promise to choose each other despite the noise of fame. Nicole's children from her previous marriage stood beside her, symbolizing a blended family built on acceptance and hope. Their honeymoon in Fiji was one of the few moments of true privacy they would ever have, a pocket of stillness before life resumed its relentless pace. But not long after, cracks began to appear. Keith's battle with addiction resurfaced, dragging them into another emotional storm. Nicole, rather than stepping back, chose to step closer. She canceled projects, shielded him from tabloids, and stood by him through rehabilitation. Her loyalty during that time became the quiet backbone of their marriage, a kind of love that isn't loud but unwavering. Their bond grew stronger through that pain. Letters were exchanged, not just words of love, but of forgiveness, of faith, of two people choosing to keep fighting. When Keith came out of rehab, he spoke of Nicole as the person who saved him, who believed when he couldn't. In those years, they learned what it meant to love without conditions. Their connection, forged in honesty and vulnerability, became a story many admired. But the thing about love is that it doesn't stop changing, even when we wish it would stay the same. In 2008, the birth of their first daughter, Sunday Rose, brought a new chapter of joy and purpose. 2 years later, their second daughter, Faith Margaret, arrived through surrogacy, after Nicole's openness about her fertility struggles inspired many women worldwide. Motherhood gave Nicole a sense of renewal, a second chance at the kind of family closeness she had longed for. For Keith, fatherhood softened his edges, giving his music new meaning. Their home in Nashville became their sanctuary, filled with laughter, creativity, and a sense of belonging that neither had fully known before. For a while, it looked like the perfect picture. 2 successful careers, 2 beautiful daughters, and a love that had survived so much. But success has a way of stealing time. Nicole's acting career demanded months away on set, while Keith's tours took him across continents. The calls became shorter, the reunions more bittersweet. What had once been effortless began to feel like work. Nicole would come home from filming emotionally drained, craving stillness, while Keith returned from performances charged with energy and adrenaline. They were living parallel lives that occasionally met but rarely lingered. Their affection remained, but the intimacy that once defined them began to fade under the weight of distance and exhaustion. By the early 2020s, subtle signs of strain became hard to ignore. Their red carpet appearances still glowed with warmth, but those closest to them noticed the difference. The public smile seemed rehearsed, the hand holding a bit too careful. Social media posts that once brimmed with affection grew sparse. Anniversaries passed quietly, unacknowledged except by fan accounts. Friends described their conversations as polite but distant, filled with surface-level updates rather than shared dreams. Nicole tried to bridge the gap with surprise visits to Keith's tour stops, family vacations, and long walks meant to rekindle connection. But the truth was that something fundamental had shifted. Love had turned into coexistence. For a while, they both pretended everything was fine. Keith poured his emotions into music, writing songs that hinted at heartbreak and regret. Nicole, as she always did, turned her pain into art, portraying characters that mirrored her own quiet longing and fatigue. The distance between them grew, not through one dramatic event, but through the accumulation of small silences, missed moments, and unspoken hurt. By 2025, it was clear. Their story had reached its turning point. Keith quietly moved into a rented home in Nashville, the final signal that what was once shared had now become separate. When the divorce news broke, the world expected drama. But there was none. No public statements, no accusations, no spectacle. Just a quiet acknowledgement of irreconcilable differences. Simple words that carried nearly 2 decades of memories. Nicole's acceptance was not bitter, but weary. She had fought for love, forgiven, endured, and finally realized that letting go could also be an act of love. The divorce was finalized in winter, marking not an end filled with noise, but a moment of clarity. Nicole retained primary custody of their daughters, while Keith continued to be a devoted father. Both handled it with dignity, determined to protect their family from the media storm that inevitably followed. After the split, Nicole spoke publicly for the first time, not to assign blame, but to tell her truth. She revealed that the hardest part of her marriage wasn't fame, distance, or addiction. It was feeling unseen. She spoke softly but powerfully about the difference between being loved and being valued, about the loneliness that can exist even in companionship. For years, she had tried to hold everything together. Her family, her career, her image, until the effort itself became exhausting. Her honesty was raw, not rehearsed. She admitted her own flaws, her relentless drive for perfection, her tendency to overgive and lose herself in the process. Her message resonated deeply. Sometimes walking away isn't failure. It's self-preservation. Keith, true to form, remained mostly silent, letting his music speak instead. His performances carried new weight, his lyrics tinged with melancholy. Fans noticed how his voice, once full of ease, now carried a quiet ache. But even in their separation, there was respect. Co-parenting became their shared mission. They prioritized their daughter's stability above all, ensuring that their private world stayed calm even as the public speculated. For Nicole, the months following the divorce became a time of rediscovery. She withdrew from the limelight, focusing on her daughters and her sister Antonia, finding comfort in the ordinary rhythms of home life. Her Nashville home, once a shared space, now became a place of peace. She began choosing film projects that reflected her new phase, emotionally rich, grounded, and purposeful. Acting became not an escape, but a form of healing. More importantly, she began advocating for women's mental health, using her own experiences to help others recognize the silent struggles behind polished appearances. For the first time in years, she wasn't trying to be perfect, she was trying to be real. As time passed, Nicole's calm confidence began to redefine her public image. The woman once seen as Hollywood's elegant enigma was now open, reflective, and deeply human. She spoke about the beauty of simplicity. Gardening, reading, spending quiet mornings with her daughters. She no longer sought validation through red carpets or applause. Her performances became even more powerful, layered with the emotional truth of someone who had lived and learned. Meanwhile, Keith continued his music career with a softer presence. He reduced his touring schedule, spending more time in Nashville to remain close to his children. Though he rarely discussed his marriage publicly, his actions spoke of respect. There were no harsh words, no attempts to rewrite the past. Theirs was a love that ended not with betrayal, but with understanding. An acknowledgement that sometimes people grow in different directions. Their story, when viewed in full, is more than a tale of love lost. It's about endurance, about facing the parts of yourself that love can no longer fix. From their tender beginning in 2005 to their dignified separation 2 decades later, Nicole and Keith's relationship reflected everything human about love: its fragility, its beauty, and its inevitable evolution. They shared hope, pain, and growth. Their marriage wasn't a failure. It was a season. One that gave them lessons, children, and a deeper understanding of themselves. Nicole's willingness to speak openly about the emotional cost of being unseen adds depth to how we understand relationships in the public eye. She redefined betrayal not as infidelity, but as emotional absence, a concept that resonated with countless people. Her courage to tell her truth without bitterness gave others permission to face their own quiet heartbreaks. Her transformation from a poised actress to a transparent woman marked a cultural shift toward valuing vulnerability over perfection. By the time she re-emerged fully into public life, there was a new lightness in her presence. Her smiles felt genuine again, her interviews no longer guarded. She had learned that peace is found not in holding on, but in letting go with grace. Her advocacy work and thoughtful film choices showed a woman no longer defined by who she loved, but by how deeply she had come to understand herself. The story of Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban reminds us that even great love can change form. It can evolve from passion to partnership, from connection to quiet farewell. Their relationship was never just a Hollywood romance. It was a human one, filled with laughter, mistakes, healing, and growth. They proved that endings don't always need to be loud to be meaningful. Sometimes, love's truest expression is knowing when to stop holding on. In the end, Nicole's journey is not about heartbreak, but rebirth. She found freedom in truth, strength in solitude, and beauty in imperfection. Her story teaches that resilience isn't just surviving pain. It's turning it into wisdom. And that even after love fades, life can bloom in ways you never expect. So as the world continues to watch Nicole Kidman shine, calmer, wiser, and more radiant than ever, we're reminded that behind every perfect image lies a real story of struggle, courage, and rediscovery. Her evolution from wife to independent woman, from silence to self-expression, is not only inspiring but deeply human. It's proof that love in all its forms leaves us changed forever, and that sometimes the most powerful endings are the quietest ones. If you found Nicole and Keith's story as moving and eye-opening as we did, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories from behind the spotlight.